New this week from Marvel Comics, Fantastic Four issue number 29, written by Ryan North, art by Corey Smith. Before I jump properly into this review, I want to highlight that this review is going to inherently include spoilers for the One World Under Doom event title, also written by Ryan North with art by R.B. Silva, which is intrinsically tied to the events of this issue of Fantastic Four. That being said, I want to offer some spoiler-free commentary regarding this current iconic run of Fantastic Four for the uninitiated, as this new Doom event is actually a rather convenient and relatively easy time to jump into the series. Fantastic Four by Ryan North has been and continues to be one of the most consistently excellent books from Marvel Comics in the last few years, in terms of narrative quality. This is due in large part to North's choice to keep the saga of the Fantastic Four family relatively separate from the continuity of the larger Marvel Comics universe. Until recently, of course, last year in the event title Blood Hunt, with distinct anthology adventure issues that have been famously compared to episodes of The Twilight Zone. However, the most essential quality present in Ryan North's excellent direction of this series so far, that is especially clear in Fantastic Four issue number 29, is an unwavering attention to character traits and, of course, character development. While reading Ryan North's Fantastic Four, readers are continually reminded about the grounded humanity of these characters, in a way that doesn't come across as effortlessly in other superhero titles. Instead of the more typical experience of reading about the latest Titanic escapades of the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, readers are continually reminded of the gentle and intelligent character of Benjamin Grimm. That is to say that each of these characters feels like they have a rich, diverse, complex life that readers are encouraged to learn about and care about. This combination of familiarity and vulnerability is the primary element that keeps diehard comic book fans invested in the medium, and speaks to the ever-winding, expansive, overarching narrative that only a legacy institution like Marvel Comics can deliver. Comics may break your heart, but I'll be damned if this isn't the greatest soap opera on earth. Am I right, true believers? Another factor that makes Fantastic Four such a prolific modern comic book title is its poignant social relevance, which again is put on abundant display in issue number 29, that's why I'm talking about it. To date, this series has practically offered the full gambit of human experience for the Fantastic Four family in one ingenious scenario after the next, with an obvious scientific and sociological focus like the Marvel Comics equivalent of Schoolhouse Rock. Yet North manages to craft the tone of his fantastic series with a much less saccharine and gilded sheen, allowing for the Fantastic Four series to be as entertaining and epic as it is soberingly realistic and genuinely informative and reflective of relevant cultural conversations. If you were looking for a modern comic book series that makes you believe again, even for just a moment, in the increasingly valuable concept of hope and justice and truth in the universe, then look no further than the Fantastic Four by Ryan North. Let's talk more specifically about issue number 29, our follow-up to the shocking events of the One World Under Doom title, which means spoilers ahead. Our issue begins with the reflective narration of the Invisible Woman, Susan Storm, as she muses about the increasingly normal world overthrown by the supremely powerful Doctor Doom. We also get a definitive timeline from this narration, with Susan revealing that it has been a singular week since Doctor Doom took control of all of the world's governments, and yet the world remains disturbingly unchanged. In order to remedy the anxiety and malaise of Doctor Doom's self-appointed stewardship of all nations, Susan and Ben decide to take a trip back to New York to have brunch with their fellow superhero compatriot and former Fantastic Four member, She-Hulk. As I stated before, this issue is a quaint reminder of the individuals behind the iconic masks of superherodom that we know and love. It might not be the most sensational or electrifying set piece. The notion of taking dedicated time for these three heroic individuals to just sit down and catch up and talk to one another, it makes for a really beautiful moment. The setup isn't entirely thematic, by the way, because we immediately gain perspective from She-Hulk regarding the tenuous legality of Doctor Doom's ascension, and gain a glimpse into the larger societal perspective of Doctor Doom's rise to power from the waitress of the restaurant, who views Doctor Doom as a disgrace, but actually supports his anti-vampire policies in the wake of the Blood Hunt event that kicked off this whole mess. And this is where the issue really starts to take shape as we learn about the fate of vampires in the Marvel Comics universe. Now free to walk about in the daylight, but who are now second-class citizens and the obvious scapegoats of the horrors of the blood hunt that they were equally victims of. As Sue, Jennifer, and Ben leave brunch, they witness a vampire family stalked by an angry New York City mob who witness the vampire family feasting on the blood of a pigeon in the park. Sue intervenes as the vampire family pleads for their life after having been turned away from the blood bank in order to feed their starving children. It's really interesting to see how much lore and content Marvel is devoting to the existence of vampires in the greater Marvel Comics society these days, after many years of a narrow, nondescript view on the subject. Same is true for the subject of symbiotes in the Marvel Comics universe at the moment, which is indicative of the level of social commentary that Marvel Comics is earnestly investing in, utilizing foundational groups of diverse people within their canon as representations of the marginalized and oppressed other that reflects the kind of news that you see far too often these days. On a more contextual level, North depicts the xenophobic and fearful sentiment of New Yorkers versus vampires as poignant commentary on the manipulative tactics of ignorant totalitarian rulers like Dr. Doom, who label entire groups of people as the enemy in order to distract from their own harmful, selfish maneuverings. However, what really sets this thematic device apart in this issue is North's upping of the ante in a way by showing us the consequences of this ignorant racist ideology, rather than merely preaching to us on the subject. As Sue, Ben, and Jennifer watch helplessly as a particularly dogmatic member of this angry mob descends on the vampire parents and stakes them, killing them in front of their own children. The trio manages to escape with the now orphaned vampire children under their protection, as She-Hulk and Ben mention that they cannot do anything against this mob of citizens without inflicting serious injury. And as the group returns to the Fantastic Four's current lodgings in Arizona, Ben's Aunt Petunia's house. Why the fuck was that so hard to say? Ben's Aunt Petunia's house. No, it's no S. Ben's Aunt Petunia's house. We see one of the vampire children appeal to Reed and help in finding a cure for her and her brother as their hunger grows to unstable levels. Jennifer and Ben eventually have to lock themselves behind protective glass with the children in order to prevent them from hurting anyone else or themselves, as Reed toils away trying to invent a cure for vampirism itself. Ultimately, Mr. Fantastic is able to synthesize a novel solution to the children's hunger. A plant-based protein bar of sorts that mimics hemoglobin, the thing that drives the classic vampire hunger. And Sue remarks that unlike the sociological and ideological problem of Dr. Doom, this practical solution is more achievable, and it's a step in the right direction in order to fight back against Doom's increasingly popular public image and scapegoating propaganda. I really enjoy the self-contained, holistic nature of all of Ryan North's Fantastic Four issues, but I do have to share the popular sentiment that I've seen floating around on the internet that the fact that Reed invented a cure to vampirism is a monumental moment in the history of Marvel Comics, and also seemingly undercuts the sociological buildup of Blood Hunt, Blade, and other comics that have so prominently featured vampires recently. You can't really ignore that. Mr. Fantastic cured vampirism. Like, I guess they're still vampires, but you don't have to drink the blood of humans anymore. You just eat your blood bar. In the final pages of this issue, we see Sue and the rest of the Fantastic Four family seemingly returning to their normal before-school routine before they are all halted by the sight of their neighbor's home covered in pro-Dr. Doom regalia and signage. This final sequence is arguably the most memorable and haunting imagery from the entire issue, as the Fantastic Four ensemble and we, the faithful reader, attempt to rationalize how and why anyone could align themselves with the sociopathic morality of a man like Victor Von Doom. It is a welcome reminder of the transcendent power of even historically fanciful entertainment genres like comic books to reflect and give new perspective on lived circumstances, even uncomfortable sociological subjects like this. What's more, this social commentary is achieved through logical and entertaining means, rather than overly moralistic or bleak, as could be the fear for avid comic book readers who just want to pick up a comic as a brief distraction from the modern world. It speaks volumes of the legacy of the Fantastic Four comic series, as well as Ryan North as a writer, that this reflective issue feels as impactful as it does. in our world that so often dismisses such attempts from creators as pandering or trite. I, for one, feel like Ryan North and company have further cemented the iconic legacy of this Fantastic Four run even more with this issue, reminding readers of the all too essential activism that the comic book medium can and should represent for its audience. Please support your local comic book stores and this powerful ongoing series by picking up Fantastic Four issue number 29 on shelves now. I'd love to know in the comments what your favorite moment from this Fantastic Four series thus far has been, if you've been keeping up. And I'd also love to hear some of your predictions or wants from the One World Under Doom event. The art from Corey Smith in this issue feels very familiar and friendly. It feels like he's been the artist for Fantastic Four this entire time, but I know he hasn't been. Genuinely so sad and shocking, and I wonder, given this character's outfit, if they're going to appear again, another Doom acolyte in New York City. Yeah, but the whole curing vampirism thing was just so nonchalant in this issue. I mean, look at this. The cure can be made in any kitchen? Holy shit. I can't believe the world's gotten like this, man. How can they trust this fucking idiot?